I watched this fascinating documentary on Max last night called Inside Job. It's narrated by Matt Damon, and it basically tells the story of the 2008 financial crisis, starting with the instability in Iceland, where all of these banks were starting to deregulate, and basically they would pay, like, the Icelandic government was paying academics a bunch of money to write these false reports saying that, like, their banks were super solid, there was nothing to worry about. And then the documentary just goes into, like, all of the factors that caused the global recession, but that was led by the collapse of the housing market. It was super interesting. It's basically like that movie The Big Short, but it kind of goes more into depth, and you see just like who were all the main players that kind of allowed this to happen. And it breaks down how the typical lending model used to be like you would borrow from a bank and then have to pay directly back to the lender who was like putting up their own capital. But once people started being able to buy debt packages, so like there were these things called CDOs, which is like a collateralized debt obligation, and it would be like a big bundle of like all types of debt, like student loan debt, housing debt, credit card debt, all these things. And then not only were people investing in those debts and betting for and against them, the likelihood they would be paid off, but due to like regulation rollbacks in Congress, banks were essentially allowed to like leverage themselves way more and make essentially riskier bets. Because the bankers were being paid for like the more debt obligations that they bought, like these CDOs, the more they invested in, because like big retirement funds were investing in them, and like the ratings agencies were rating them AAA even though they were like completely shite. There was basically an incentive to like give people bad loans, like to give people that couldn't afford a house like a mortgage to that house, because they, even if you couldn't pay it off, because the thing that like really caused it is the banks weren't on the hook for like losses. It's really fascinating. I can do like a whole actually breakdown explaining things step by step if you want, but it was a really interesting movie, and I would love to know y'all's thoughts about it. If you've seen it, if you know about, the intricacies of the 2008 financial crisis. Maybe I should make like a really detailed video going through like what CDOs are, exactly what happened, everything with AIG, all the different congressional people involved. Would you guys be interested in that?